Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome. That, as they say, is that. Marvel Comics. Let's go ahead and get started. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And it is Tuesday. That means it's time to take an advanced look at these collected editions coming out this week from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. Before getting started, I do want to thank David Gabriel and the kind folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these books. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on November 28th or 29th, depending on where you get your books. So we've got some epic collections here, one of them being a reprint, one being the ending to this classic era of Excalibur. We have one of these big saga books that almost feels like an epic collection, and we've got a couple of ongoing series, and this book right here that also feels like a big, thick epic collection. Surprised it wasn't an epic, honestly. But let's go ahead and start. We're going to kick it off with some Immortal X-Men. But as always, what I do is leave timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around in case you don't want any spoilers. Like if you haven't read volumes 1 and 2 of Immortal X-Men, by all means, maybe skip to Ghost Rider. Or, I mean, some people don't care about spoilers, but I know most people usually do. And before I go any further, don't forget to smash that like button. At least that goes a long way for us here on the channel, and it just keeps us doing what we're doing. And a big thank you to all of you that have watched our videos over the years, especially this segment. You all keep making this segment come back, and I love catching up with, well, I say modern comics, but it's really 2 modern runs right now. But this is the way that I catch up with reading. I'm about 6 months behind. All right, let's go ahead and start with Immortal X-Men. So the first book is Immortal X-Men by Gillen, Volume 3. Now, we'll say before opening this book up that if you haven't read Sins of Sinister, you haven't been keeping up with Immortal X-Men, you may not want to watch this part of the overview, or because I don't want to spoil what happened previously, because a lot of things were revealed in Sins of Sinister. Okay, let's open it up, though, for people that don't care or have read it. One thing is that these books are currently being printed in the United States. Like, unless it's an epic collection or one of those big, thick books, these skinnier books are being printed in the U.S. So here are your credits. You have Gillen writing the stories, Lucas Wernick drawing it, and then you have David Curiel doing the colors, with all the covers being supplied by Mark Brooks. This book collects issues 11 through 13 of Immortal X-Men, and then the Before the Fall Sinister 4, as stated back here, which is just a one-shot. Now, this is in the aftermath of Sins of Sinister, where it's revealed that Sinister has had this plan all along, and there are pretty much 4 clones of him that have been going around, and he doesn't know who the original is, or us as readers don't know who the original Nathaniel Essex is. And what's happening is that the X-Men, their DNAs have changed because of Sinister, so they don't quite know who to trust outside of some of the visions that Destiny has been having. And of course, we have the character of Rasputin that has shown up from the future, telling them, and they have to kind of go in a leap of faith. We get a little bit more about Mother Righteous and her role in the past, but the actual one-shot, the Sinister 4 in here, is a really interesting look at the history of Nathaniel Essex. Because, we've met these 4 characters, we've met these 4 clones, but we don't know who the original one is. And in here we have some resurrections that were completely unexpected. You have people that are turning on each other because, like I said, whenever you have Sinister involved, people don't know exactly who to trust. And one of the first things that they do is revive Selene, the Black Queen. But who they put in the Quiet Council is Peter Rasputin, Colossus. And why he's making these kind of decisions is kind of interesting. Kate doesn't quite trust him, even though she feels like she knows him better than everybody. But yes, the highlight for me was this awesome series in the back, and it's the Before the Fall Sinister 4, and exploring more of the characters of, or more of the character and the clones of Nathaniel Essex. Again, I strongly suggest at least reading Sins of Sinister, as confusing as that might be, in order to enjoy this particular book. Has 128 pages, and all the way in the back is where you have the covers that are textless, and then, of course, the variant covers. Retails for $15.99. Asking my daughters what their favorite cover was, and both of them voted for that Luciano Vecchio cover right there. It is beautiful. All right, next up is Ghost Rider Volume 3, Dragged Out of Hell. This is continuing the Benjamin Percy series, and if you haven't read the previous 2 volumes, I'll just say that they are a lot of fun, especially that Volume 1. That Volume 1 got me hooked. I thought it was a mini-series, but you wonderful folks told me that it was an ongoing series. Still surprised that it's rated T+, just because of some of the violence they get away with in here. And that's probably due to the fact that he's not killing human beings. He's going after demons, so, all those rules are thrown out the window because he can decapitate demons. So this collects issues 11 through 16 of the new Ghost Rider series that started in 2022. You have Benjamin Percy still continuing writing it, with David Watcher, Corey Smith, Chris Campana, and Brent Peoples as the artist. And then you have your inkers and your colorists and your letterers. It's a lot of artists for this book. So what this one mainly focuses on is the story of Johnny Blaze still continuing on this road journey to get to know himself and try to figure out exactly who was pulling the strings of everything happening in Volume 1 without going into spoilers. Something big happens in Volume 1 of this. And he's not alone. He's with Talia right here, who's also learning about her powers. And they're kind of learning a little bit about each other, so much so that he's kind of retelling her his origin story. Now, one of the things that happens through here is that we have the character of Danny Ketch come back. However, Danny is not his usual self. That's saying a lot because he's gone through a lot of changes recently, going from Ghost Rider to the Death Rider, to all the things that have happened in the previous Ed Brisson run with Danny Ketch. But this time around, he is making a deal with this particular corporation. So we have a little bit of a flashback, and yes, this kind of shows you what Danny Ketch will look like. But he is introduced to this young lady right here who kind of lures him out of the bar to tell him about this corporation that she's running, and it's called the Infernal Labs Corporation. And what she promises him is that she is going to be able to separate the demon from Danny Ketch forever, meaning that he won't be able to turn into the Ghost Rider, that this curse will be finally gone and lifted. But what she doesn't tell him is why she's using him, and it's kind of a way to find her brother that was lured into hell by a demon, and it goes into a deep, dark territory type of story. And Danny's doing things that are out of his control, so now it's up to Talia and Johnny Blaze, Ghost Rider, to go and fight this friend that has new powers and is no longer in control of his actions. So that's all I will say about it. Let's look at the extras in the back. So we've got some variant covers back here. The book has 136 pages and retails for $19.99. And that is Ghost Rider Volume 3, Dragged Out of Hell. Next up is Spider-Man by Tom Taylor. This is the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man collection, as I like to call it. Now, this is one of my wife's, the Astonishing Melanie's, favorite stories. Actually, she did a review of the first trade paperback. My goodness, it's been about 3 years now. This is one of those big, thick saga books. So they are about as thick as some epic collections. Like this particular Spider-Man book has 360 pages. So collected in here is Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man 1 through 14, and that's the 2019 series. Not the one by Peter David and Mike Wieringo. And then material from Free Comic Book Day 2019, Spider-Man Venom. But what they also decided to add in here is the War of the Realms Strike Force, the Land of Giants. And here are all the credits, Juan Cabal and Ken Lashley being the main artist on Friendly Neighborhood. Jorge Molina doing the art in the War of the Realms Strike Force, the Land of Giants. You have a couple of other fill-in artists like Pere Perez, but those are your main artists. And what this is kind of another ongoing Spider-Man title. It's also set during the time when he was living with Boomerang and Hobby. They were all living together as roommates. But this focuses more on the human aspects of Spider-Man, like the title suggests, the friendly neighborhood. of Spider-Man. And it is a beautiful book. It's an amazing series. If you haven't had a chance to read it, and those trade paperbacks of Friendly Neighborhood are out of print right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and tell you this gets my stamp and seal of approval because this book is just so awesome. It's not an omnibus, it's not an oversized hardcover, but it's a complete collection featuring these long out of print stories and hopefully introducing new readers to these wonderful tales that I wish had gone on longer. So the main story arc, of course, is Peter Parker's living in his apartment with those two friends. Fred isn't really his friend, and he kind of gets annoyed by him. And you get a little bit of that in here, just sitting around his apartment wearing his underwear. And one of his neighbors is Leilani, and she's being just bullied by these very strong, as she likes to call them, influential people that are bullying her for some reason, and he doesn't quite know why. And one of the other main characters that is also a big part of this is Marnie, this old lady right here. And she has secrets of her own. And yes, this is the scene I was talking about where he walks in and Fred Boomerang is just sitting in his underwear on Peter Parker's couch. Now, one of the things that happens through here is that these mysterious men are in Leilani's apartment when he was running errands, and Peter Parker goes in there, but he can't show how strong he is, so he gets knocked out, and they kidnapped her. And what she does is leaves him a basket of laundry, and inside that basket of laundry are these two mysterious kids. It could be aliens, could be somebody from the underworld, could be somebody from another dimension. While all this is going on, Aunt May is writing him a letter. This is a beautiful side story right here with him and MJ. But as you find out, Aunt May's talking about how much he loves him and how much MJ's playing a big part in his life. And at the end of the letter is when she apologizes for not telling him. And this is when it just kind of opens up what this book is really about. And she apologizes for not telling him about finding a lump a few weeks ago in her body. And you find out that she is at the cancer center. So that's another big part of the story, and it's a big part of this, because, we are talking about Aunt May. Yes, I know a lot of people are joking probably right now, going, but she survived so much, including death. Yes, but if you put all that to the side, this is still a wonderful, beautiful story about this relationship between Peter Parker and Aunt May. Now, Marnie has secrets of her own. She turns out to be this character named the Rumor, who is quite, or not quite human, rather. And it might all be connected to those two strange kids. You got Johnny Storm that gets involved with Peter Parker to make sure those kids get back home. And this is right here. This is the Spider Bite issue. Issue number 6. I don't know if it won an Eisner. I'm not sure it did, but it's the one that anybody that has read this probably talks about. It is a beautiful story about Spider-Man's sidekick, Spider Bite. It's this little kid, and together they take on, the Sinister Six. They take on a lot of Spider-Man's bad guys, and Spider-Man can't fight all these bad guys by himself, so that's why he needs the help of Spider Bite. And you can find out how that story ends in case you're asking yourself, who the heck is Spider Bite? If you've not read it, do yourself a favor and at least read that issue. The rest of the series focuses, of course, on still this mystery as to who these little kids are and where they originally came from. We have a solo issue of Mary Jane teaming up with Miles Morales. And I forgot to talk about the War of the Realms issue in here. It's just a one-shot, but it is written by Tom Taylor, and it has Spider-Man teaming up with Captain America and Luke Cage and Wolverine, and he has his own flying horse that Pegasus is named. Oh, what do you call it? Buttercup. He called it Buttercup. All in all, this is a wonderful series that I'm so glad is back to print. As far as the extras, we don't have a lot of extras because they weren't really doing a lot of variants back then, but we do have some. So set during the Zeb Wells, no, I'm sorry, this is the Nick Spencer era of Spider-Man, but a wonderful, wonderful series that should not be overlooked. $34.99, 360 pages, and that is Spider-Man by Tom Taylor. Next up is Thunderbolt's Dark Reign. This is a very interesting trade paperback because this is set, yes, of course, during the Dark Reign era of Marvel Comics. But it doesn't have the beginning, like the Warren Ellis stuff, and it doesn't have the ending, like the Jeff Parker stuff with the Siege storyline. It just kind of has the middle and introduces us to these new Thunderbolts characters. So in here is collected Thunderbolts Desperate Measures one shot, the Breaking Point one shot, International Incident one shot, and Reason and Madness one shot. Each one introducing us to a particular character of the Thunderbolts. And also collected in here is Thunderbolts 122 to 131 and Deadpool 8 and 9. So this is in the aftermath of Civil War, and written by Paul Jenkins. Most of the one-shots, Steve Lieber, Marco Jurjevic doing the artwork, and then, of course, Andy Diggle writing the stories in here. But this introduces us to Norman Osborn, how he's heading the Thunderbolts, or the new Thunderbolts, and pretty much going through each of these criminals and deciding which ones will get to join the new Thunderbolts team, and which ones are from the original team that he no longer wants to work with. So that's what these little one-shots are. One focusing on Moonstone, one focusing on Venom, and it is the new Venom, one focusing on Songbird. Actually, it's the Songbird and Moonstone issue. The Radioactive Man story in here. And then I think the last one is the Venom story arc. There's a little bit of penance. As much as I hated that character, I still have to talk about it. There's a little bit of penance in here, but you can find out for yourself exactly how they are all recruited by Norman Osborn to join the Thunderbolts. And then we get the ongoing series here. However, these issues are not written by who will be the new writer. These are done by Christos Gage, who at the time was writing the Avengers Initiative stories. So this is the team working together, and this is after Warren Ellis have left the book. So it's kind of like the in-between issues. And these issues are set during the Secret Invasion storyline. So it's about the Skrull invasion and how Norman Osborn's team helps save the world. Not just the United States, but the entire world. And then we get the saga of Andy Diggle. So Andy Diggle comes over from DC Comics, because he was working on The Losers at that time, and pretty much takes what's left of the Warren Ellis team of Thunderbolts and makes his own team. So you've got a couple of things that happen. A couple characters end up dying through here, and we end up getting some new recruits. And then Norman shows a little bit more of his true self. What's interesting is that the full team isn't revealed until the Deadpool crossover. So this is the Daniel Way Deadpool run from 2008. So that's when the team is revealed as to who remains from Ellis's Thunderbolts and who will go on to be in Andy Diggle's run. And this doesn't collect all of Andy Diggle's run either. So it's a really interesting collection. It's kind of like in between. And I don't know why it wasn't a modern epic collection, even though it feels like one, because it is 384 pages, and it retails for $39.99. So who knows? Maybe one day we'll get an omnibus of this stuff with the other stuff I mentioned, or maybe one day it'll be rebranded as a modern epic with more stuff added to it. All right, it is spine watching time. Is that what I call this? But anyway, these are all of the spines of the books coming out this week from Marvel Comics. And actually, yeah, there are they no Omnis? I don't think there are Omnis this week. So take a breather. Next week, woo, we got some more Omnis. All right, let's continue. Oh yeah, and this is also the part where I remind you to smash that like button. Okay, now let's continue with the overviews. And here we have the Avengers West Coast Epic Collection Volume 2, Lost in Space Time. This is a reprint of the Avengers West Coast. And this collects the West Coast Avengers, as it was known before they changed the title officially to the Avengers West Coast, 8 through 24, Annual Number 1, Avengers Annual Number 15, so it's got the crossover annual in here, 488 pages and $44.99. Now, I don't have my original printing because I gave it away a long time ago to compare it to, but it looks like it's the same scans because I flipped through the omnibus a few days ago along with this, and it looks to be about the same scans. Now, this might be a West Coast Avengers story, but this really is focused on primarily three different characters. This is focused on Tigra, Mockingbird, and Hank Pym. So Tigra, this continues from the previous volume where they were searching for her soul and they get trapped through time. But she is still continuing to be torn between this feral side of herself and then the human side. And she's trying to resolve this situation. But in this book, she does get a resolution. And man, it goes into crazy territory in that resolution. It does involve a bunch of cat people and, of course, this demonic city. And we are talking about the inner struggle of this character. And then Hank Pym also has a really dark arc in here. It's filled with emotional turmoil, and he I have to, I do this when I remember stories. I can't remember each one of them. This is why I like to reread these books. So I do have to give a warning. Like, there's a point in Hank's life where he's considering suicide, and how he gets out of it is really interesting because it carries on to one of the next story arcs that happens through here. And man, when you read this, you do get the sense that Steve Englehart has come to just the conclusion of Hank's story. Like, there's nothing else he can do to the character, and you really do feel that moment for him that this is it. Like, life isn't going to get better. My gosh. Like I said, it gets into some dark territory. A lot of things in these particular runs of West Coast Avengers way ahead of their time. I forgot to mention that Al Milgrom is supplying most of the artwork in here. Although Steve Ditko does one particular issue. We have the Freedom Force that shows up through these issues right here. This is the Steve Ditko issue. And that is from the Avengers Annual number 15. Okay, he does the breakdown, but then Klaus Janson supplies the finishes for it. And this is the crossover with the West Coast Avengers. Now, the other person I was talking about was Bobby, and that is the Mockingbird story. This kind of wraps up this final storyline. This is the feral people with the pandemonium there, Master of Pandemonium. And it's wrapped up through a means of time traveling. And we're talking about the Old West and then the Phantom Rider. And this puts the character of Mockingbird through so much. And this is where the roster changes for a while for the West Coast Avengers. We do have some guest stars like Doctor Strange and the Fantastic Four that show up through here. And this is more of that Al Milgrom artwork. So in here you have more of the West Coast Avengers, about 17, 18 issues, the 2 annuals. And then, of course, we've got some extras back here, mainly from the Marvel premiere. And let's see. You've got some reprints over here. Lost Space Time storyline. The West Coast Avengers crossed over with other time-traveling tales. The Ancient Egyptian Events of Fantastic Four number 19. This shows you where you find those time-traveling events. And then from Doctor Strange number 53. And this right here is from the feature, from the promotional story in Marvel Age Annual number 2. Cover art and original artwork here. This is from the Omnibus Volumes 1 and 2. You have Carlos Pacheco over here and Greg Land. These sort of standard covers. And then the West Coast Avengers Marvel Premiere hardcovers, which is the way I was collecting them until they announced the Epic Collections. So $44.99 for this printing, and it has 488 pages. Next up is the Iron Man Epic Collection, The War of the Supervillains. We are looking at Volume 6 of the Iron Man era, or the Iron Nose era, as some of you all love to point out. Collecting issues 68 through 91 of Iron Man, plus the 3rd annual. Mike Friedrich is the main writer on this. Barry Alfonso, Bill Mantlo, Len Wein, Archie Goodwin are some of the other writers with Jerry Conway and Steve Gerber. You have George Tuska and Herb Trimpe, Keith Pollard doing some of the pencils, and here we have what kicks off this book with issue number 68 with the return of the unicorn. But it's also the return of Tony Stark going back to Vietnam. This time around, he's running into Sunfire himself from the pages of X-Men. And the unicorn has a special secret about him, and that is the fact that the Mandarin has taken over his body. So the Mandarin is just this useless corpse right now, and is using the unicorn to get around. And then, of course, through different means, he is able to get his body restored. So now it's up to Iron Man and Sunfire to stop fighting to team up against the Mandarin. Now, when he went to Vietnam, he was there with some friends, and of course, when he got into the fight with the Mandarin, he ended up getting knocked out and left some of his friends there, and so he has to go back. But the main story arc that happens through here is this big storyline about the War of the Supervillains, and Iron Man is just caught in the middle. You have the Yellow Claw fighting against other supervillains like the Mandarin, and the character of Iron Man is just caught in the middle of all of this, and somebody is pulling the strings. Somebody named the Black Llama. That's like, and it's not just Yellow Claw and the Mandarin. You also have MODOK with his new body that shows up through here, and he's fighting the Mad Thinker. The Crimson Dynamo comes back in this particular epic collection. This is the MODOK story I was talking about, where he gets a new body and fights the Thinker. And yes, the Black Llama might be the person that is behind all of this. Now, after issue 75, issue 76 is a reprint of Iron Man number 9, so you do get the cover. And then you jump right back into the action with Iron Man number 77. Firebrand makes a return through here. And there's an introduction to one particular character. I really like this issue right here. Issue number 78. This is a really interesting issue because this is a flashback issue, but it kind of retcons a little bit of the story of Iron Man by introducing us to some new characters and him making a stance against the war and fighting the war and never forgetting some of the people that he left behind. And this is a story by Bill Mantlo and drawn by George Tuska. Yeah, but this is one long story of Iron Man just fighting all these different villains who were at one time fighting themselves. And like I said, this new character of the Black Llama might be pulling the strings. One of the most interesting appearances that takes place during this particular time is the return of a character named Jack Frost. However, this time around, well, before we talk about him, we got to talk about the new armor that he gets in this particular issue. And it's in the next issue that we get the Blizzard. So the Blizzard makes a return in here, but like I said, he previously was known as Jack Frost. And now he comes back as this bad. I love his costume. And poor Pepper Hogan, has no idea what her heart wants. You have the annual here that puts the Molecule Man against the Iron Man and the Man-Thing. And it's quite a long story. And then you have the return of the Blood Brothers. And they were the ones that first appeared in issue 55, along with a famous Mad Titan that you might be familiar with. And by now, Mike Friedrich has stepped away from writing duties of Iron Man, and it's mainly Jim Shooter writing some of the stuff towards the back here. With some other fill-in writers, you have the return of the Controller. And then you have the extras. Jerry Conway also lending a hand. So let's look at the extras. You have the cover here, the giant size Iron Man number 1 by Gil Kane, the original art and original pages here. The Black Llama, Gil Kane. This is the cover production with the original cover of Iron Man attacking, while the revised cover, seen on page 174 of this epic, shows him defending himself. And what a difference a dialogue tweak and minor art revision can make. Okay, I'm kind of curious about that. My chest plate destroyed, my transistors losing power, I'm done for. Vengeance in Vietnam and Avenger Exposed, learn the soul-searing secret hidden in Iron Man's past. So, out of my way, butchers, or I'm coming right through you. Okay, yeah, it's a lot more menacing than him losing power. And thinking he's almost done for. So, just a little bit of tweaking from some artwork in here. And definitely changing the dialogue. Some original cover art from the annual, and then the house ad. 480 pages, $44.99, and that is Iron Man, the War of the Supervillains. And last but certainly not least is the Excalibur Epic Collection Volume 9. So this is the final one, well, so far, unless they do another Excalibur collection and modern stuff. Collecting the final issues of the original run that was started by Chris Claremont and Alan Davis. This collects the Ben Raab stuff and includes the Chris Claremont miniseries, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We have Mel Ruby and Jim Calafiore, Trevor Scott, Del Eaglesham, and Rick Leonardi supplying most of the pencils here. But it kicks off with Mel Ruby's artwork. And I will say, you know, going back to these issues, I really like the dynamic poses that Mel Ruby would use. He had this interesting mix of actually Jimmy Calafiore and Carlos Pacheco. Collected in here, by the way, are Excalibur issues 116 to 125, and then X-Men Unlimited number 19, and that one is actually drawn by Jimmy Calafiore. And then X-Men True Friends 1 through 3. But also pleasantly surprised to see the Excalibur 2 series, Excalibur from 2001, 1 through 4, collected in here. So you have I almost called them X-Men. The Excalibur team members, some of them going off on a space mission that lasts a couple of issues, going up against the Renegades. We do have some of the members here on Earth. And I remember during this time, Doug Locke looking more and more, or starting to look more and more like Goku from Dragon Ball Z. Or at least memory serves me correct. We have the Secret of the Dark Banff. We have some returning characters, not just Lockheed that you saw there, but also Amanda Sefton shows back up through these pages. And you do find out who that Secret Banff is, and it does have ties to Nightmare and maybe Belasco. And actually, that's from the X-Men Unlimited issue right here that shows us the return of Amanda and Belasco, as well as a couple of other characters from Limbo that you may have not seen for a while. Sabra ends up joining the fight here whenever they get reunited with perhaps Legion that is now taken over Megan. Del Eaglesham comes in as one of the guest pencilers. I want to make sure I'm talking about the right issues with Mel Ruby really harnessing that Goku power for the character of... Yes! That's what I thought. Okay. Old brain still got it. I remember, that when I came back to comics reading this going, wonder if he was a Dragon Ball Z fan. Obviously, right? That was honestly way ahead of its time. Not a lot of people were drawing those kind of things back then. Not here in America. And yes, all of it leading to the Crazy Gang coming back. And then, of course, what you probably saw at the beginning. Now, with the wedding comes the parties beforehand. And then the return of a lot of different characters throughout Excalibur's life. I mean, we're talking 125 issues. A lot of characters have shown up and have been a part of this team. So that's what happens in this very issue. We have so many characters that came back. Some of them coming back angry at some of these characters, and some of them coming back with different storylines that they're sharing with you for the first time because they've been out of the picture for so long. But it was a nice reminder of how fun the series once was. And then we have True Friends. This is X-Men True Friends. It's a story practically focusing on Kitty Pryde and Rachel Summers. And it takes place, honestly, after Excalibur ended and before Kitty rejoined the X-Men, where she is sent back in time to 1936. And of course, what is a time travel story if you're an X-Men, if you can't run into Wolverine? It features the Shadow King, and it features a couple of other surprises with a 3-issue miniseries drawn by Rick Leonardi and written by Chris Claremont. How do they get back to time? Well, it's only one way for you to find out. And this is the Excalibur series I was talking about. This one features Megan and Captain Britain, but not just R616 Captain Britain, Brian Braddock, other Captain Britons. Also Black Knight and Psylocke. There's a character named Benedict that ends up joining them. And this is the story of what happens when Roma goes bad. And the ending of this one is left so open. Like, there's other things I was expecting with more of that character in the pages of X-Men or Excalibur. And I don't think they really followed through. This is a story that's written by Ben Rabb. And, you know, I'm just glad that it's collected. It's full of twists and turns. It takes place in Otherworld. And it shows what happens when a goddess goes bad. 512 pages. Let's look at the extras in the back. So we have the Time Slip Captain Britain, Britain pin up here. And this is a concept by Jim Kruger, Matt Smith, and Kevin Tinsley. This is an article from Marvel Vision number 27, The Greatest Comics Never Seen of Captain Britain. The Excalibur page, right? I think that's from the final issue, if I'm not mistaken. And then some of the articles in here by Ben Urich. Oh, this is all from the Marvel Visions. Marvel Visions was kind of like Marvel Age, but set in the 90s. And then this amazing piece right here, where they had to replace something. Removed and replaced with floating heads of the Excalibur cast. Okay. The background art was removed. And this is all by John Cassaday. 512 pages, and it retails for $49.99, and it wraps up Excalibur in epic format. Hopefully, you know, one day we'll get an omnibus. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And those were the books for the week of November 28th or 29th. Let me know in the comments down below which books you are picking up, which ones are on your radar, which ones you are hoping to get, which ones you are waiting for an omnibus. Are you hoping they finish Excalibur in an omnibus format and also collecting new Excalibur? Are you hoping we get the whole Dark Reign era, including all of Andy Diggle, Christos Gage, Jeff Parker, a little bit of Jeff Parker, and of course Warren Ellis, who kicked it off, in one omnibus? And yes, if you want to see the Krakoa era collected in a big, oversized format. Let me know in the comments down below. Smash that like button on the way out. Check out our Patreon and Spreadshop. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.